Hi everyone, today we're going to look at equivalent fractions and how that can help us when we're dividing numbers that have decimals. So first, let's look at some equivalent fractions to activate our schema. Here I've written 3/10, and what that means is I take my unit and divide it into 10 equal pieces, and of those, I'm using 3 of them. Okay, so over here we have 30 hundredths. You can see I've divided my unit into 100 equal pieces, and I have shaded in or used 30 of them. Visually, you can see this is worth the same amount as this. I've shaded in the same amount of area. So how do I get from 3/10 to 30 hundredths? Well, how would I get from 10 to 100? I multiplied by 10. I just added in 10 rows to my 10 columns. So multiply by 10, but we want to keep that same relationship between the 3 and the 10. So if this gets 10 times bigger, the 3 has to get 10 times bigger too. And that gets us to 30/100ths. Now let's take that notion of equivalent fractions and apply it to dividing with decimals. So here we have 9 6/10 divided by 3 2/10. Now, I don't know how to find out how many times 3 2/10 will go into 9 6/10. I just don't have the schema on that. But if I could turn this into a whole number, I might be more able to apply my schema and do that division. So I need to figure out, what do I multiply 3 2/10 by to get to a whole number? Well, I have a digit in the tenths place, so let's multiply by 10. And remember, if I multiply my divisor by 10, I need to multiply my dividend by 10 as well. So I would multiply by 10, and that brings me to 96 divided by 32. From there, I can treat it just like a regular division problem. Perfect, we're done. Let's take a look at a slightly more complicated one. Here we have, 1 63 hundredths, can't see my decimal, sorry, there we go, divided by 5 hundredths. I could also call this 1 630 thousandths, since there's a 0 here in the thousandths place, but they're worth the same. So we know from the previous example, I want my divisor to be a whole number. Well, I've got 5 hundredths, so let's multiply it by 100, which means we multiply that by 100. That brings us to 163 divided by 5. Let's divide it out and see what we get. 5 goes into 1 0 times. 5 goes into 16 3 times. That gets us 15. I subtract it, get a remainder of 1. Remember, we're in decimal land. We don't want remainders. So drop the 3. 5 goes into 13 2 times with a remainder of 3. But again, we don't want a remainder, so we put a decimal up here and drop that invisible 0. 5 goes into 30 6 times. So our answer is 32 6 hundredths. Now, I want to check to see, will this quotient work for this problem? The easiest way to check that and make sure we're correct is to take our divisor and multiply it by our quotient. So let's try it out. We have 0.05 5 hundredths times 32 6 tenths. So 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 0 is 0 with a 3. Bring that down. 6 times 0 is 0. All right. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 0 is 0. Add that 1. 2 times 0 is 0. All right. Now let's do our 3. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 0 is 0. And add the 1. 3 times 0 is 0. Add them up. And then remember from when we multiplied with decimals before, we need to look at how many digits are to the right of the decimal places. 1, 2, 3. So then 3 of our digits here need to be to the right of the decimal. 1, 2, 3. 1.63. Did we end up with the same number that was our dividend? Yes, 1 63/100. It checks out. We did it correctly.